On a hot summer night in Southern California during the mid-1980s, a new kind of terror gripped the unsuspecting residents. A merciless predator stalked the streets, invading homes, and striking fear into the hearts of the people. This is the haunting story of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
Welcome to Crime Quickie, where we explore the captivating world of crime stories. We're your hosts, Paige Turner and Lucy Furr. In today's episode, we will take a look at the horrifying tale of the Night Stalker, a brutal serial killer who committed a series of gruesome crimes across Southern California. Join us as we venture into the twisted mind of Richard Ramirez, a man whose reign of terror would leave a lasting impact on the lives of countless victims and their families.
Born in El Paso, Texas, in 1960, Richard Ramirez was the youngest of 5 children in a devoutly religious family. His father, Julian Ramirez, was a former police officer who frequently physically abused his wife and children. Growing up, Richard was exposed to violence and witnessed his father's aggressive behavior firsthand.
Ramirez's early life was further marred by several head injuries, including one incident in which he was knocked unconscious by a swing at a park. These injuries, coupled with his father's abuse, may have contributed to Ramirez's later violent tendencies.
As a teenager, Ramirez began to spiral down a dark path. He turned to drugs, became a heavy user of LSD and cocaine, and started committing petty crimes. During this time, Ramirez found a mentor in his older cousin, Mike, a decorated Vietnam War veteran. Mike regaled Ramirez with gruesome tales of his wartime experiences and the brutal acts he committed. Mike also taught Ramirez military tactics and skills, including stealth and hand-to-hand combat.
In a shocking turn of events, Ramirez witnessed Mike fatally shoot his wife during a domestic dispute. This event seemed to solidify the young Ramirez's fascination with violence and death. As he descended further into a life of crime and drug use, Ramirez became fixated on the darker aspects of human nature and began to experiment with Satanism. This obsession would later become a chilling trademark of his horrific crimes.
The Night Stalker's crime spree began in the early 1980s, but it wasn't until 1984 that his murders escalated in frequency and brutality. Ramirez targeted homes in the Los Angeles and San Francisco areas, often choosing victims at random. He struck at night, gaining entry through unlocked doors and windows. Once inside, Ramirez unleashed a terrifying level of violence on his unsuspecting victims.
Ramirez's crimes were marked by their sadistic nature. He would often sexually assault his female victims, sometimes in front of their husbands or partners, before brutally murdering them. In some cases, he even forced the male victims to watch as he brutalized their loved ones. After the murders, Ramirez would often ransack the homes, stealing money and valuables.
As the attacks continued, a distinct pattern emerged. Ramirez would often leave behind satanic symbols and phrases, scrawled in blood at the crime scenes. This macabre detail added an even more chilling aspect to his crimes and captured the public's attention.
Fear gripped the communities where the Night Stalker struck. Residents took extra precautions, ensuring their doors and windows were locked and installing security systems. The police were under immense pressure to catch the elusive killer, but leads were scarce. The Night Stalker seemed to slip through the cracks, eluding authorities time and time again.
In August of 1985, the tide began to turn against Ramirez. Following a failed carjacking attempt, his face was captured by a witness, and the police were able to obtain a fingerprint from a stolen car he had used. This crucial piece of evidence finally gave authorities a name: Richard Ramirez. The manhunt intensified as law enforcement agencies worked tirelessly to bring the Night Stalker to justice.
On August 31, 1985, Ramirez's reign of terror came to an end. Unaware that his face was plastered on newspapers and television screens across the state, Ramirez returned to Los Angeles after a short trip to Arizona. As he walked through the streets of East Los Angeles, he was spotted by a group of residents who recognized him as the Night Stalker. The group chased Ramirez, eventually catching and detaining him until the police arrived.
Ramirez's arrest was met with a mixture of relief and horror, as the full extent of his depravity was revealed. Over the course of his trial, the prosecution presented evidence linking Ramirez to 14 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. The trial was a media frenzy, with reporters from around the world descending on the courtroom to cover the proceedings.
Ramirez reveled in the attention, often making shocking statements and displaying bizarre behavior during the trial. He maintained his allegiance to Satan and frequently flashed a pentagram drawn on his palm to the cameras. In November of 1989, after a lengthy trial, Richard Ramirez was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to death.
The Night Stalker's capture and trial brought a sense of closure to the many victims and their families. However, the haunting memories of his crimes continued to cast a dark shadow over the communities he terrorized.
Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, remains one of the most notorious serial killers in American history. His brutal crimes and shocking actions during his trial left an indelible mark on the public's consciousness. Despite being sentenced to death, Ramirez died of complications from B-cell lymphoma while awaiting execution in June of 2013.
The Night Stalker's story is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the hearts of seemingly ordinary individuals. It also underscores the importance of remaining vigilant and taking necessary precautions to protect ourselves and our loved ones from potential threats.
That's it for this episode of Crime Quickie. A quick preview of our next episode.
In the sweltering summer of 1976, a monstrous figure cast a shadow of terror over New York City. With a thirst for blood and a .44 caliber bulldog revolver, he hunted down innocent victims and haunted the dreams of an entire city. Dubbed the Son of Sam, this enigmatic killer left cryptic letters for the police, taunting them with his sinister deeds. This is the chilling story of David Berkowitz.